welcome back to my channel. Thank you for coming back for another episode, and if you're new to my channel, hello, I'm Abby. So in this episode I am going to be talking more about my pregnancy on a deeper level and how it came to be such a severe case of ICP and what I went through. So I'm sure this is going to need to tap into a lot of different things across a load of different episodes, but let's give this a go, see how far I get, and yeah, we'll go from there. So if I start from the very beginning, as I said in my last video, I suffered from ICP in my pregnancy, which stands for intrahepatic cholestasis of pregnancy. So I will refer to it as ICP, and it is basically a form of liver disease within pregnancy where your bile acids don't go through your body properly and they end up going into your bloodstream, and that's essentially because your liver is not functioning the way that it normally would. So I will explain bile acid levels just so some of the numbers that I talk through make sense. I know if you yourself are going through ICP, you will know these pretty well. So when it comes to bile acids in a standard human being, they class anything below 14 as relatively normal. And when it comes to ICP, they class anything over 20 as something that needs to be monitored. Then the other marker that they look at within your blood results is ALT, which is the function of your liver. And they would like to see those numbers below the 30 mark. So that's really what you should see in terms of normal levels if you're getting blood tests. So starting from the beginning, I started developing my itching symptoms at week 8 in my pregnancy, so within trimester 1. And at that point, I didn't really think much of it. If I'm honest, the sickness was overruling my itching at that point because it wasn't as severe as what it became. I thought it was just one of those symptoms of the first trimester and that it would be over by the time I'd got to week 12. So I did mention it to my midwife and she said we'll just keep an eye on it. Once I'd got to week 12, 13, the itching started to become a bit more intense. Now, why the itching happens, just to explain that in a bit more detail, is because the bile is going into your bloodstream. It's essentially like poison going into your blood, really, so it's making you itchy. Most people, the symptoms do start off within the palms of their feet, in the palms of their hands, and they do tend to kick off the most during the night when you're trying to sleep, which is obviously not great. And yeah, so that's essentially the disease and the levels, how it works, etc. So when I had got to week 13, my midwife said, let's just do a blood test. Let's just do a blood test and see where you're at and what comes off the back of it. Don't think it will be that because of how early you are on in your pregnancy, but let's see what it says. So this was on a Friday. And on the Sunday, I still remember it to this day, we had a lovely day planned with my family. So it was Black Friday sales, so we were like, let's go and pick some baby furniture, and they were treating us to some baby furniture. So it was one of the exciting days of your pregnancy, and it became one of the worst in ours. So I think it was 8:30 in the morning. I still remember I was making a cup of tea in the kitchen and I got a phone call and said, hi, Abby speaking, no idea who this was. And sorry if you can hear the ice cream man in the background. Yeah, so I had no idea who this was, and it was the hospital. And they said, are you available at 12 o'clock? We need to get you in as soon as possible for a liver scan. So at this point, I'm like, what are you talking about? Have you got the right person? She's like, yes, I'm speaking to Abby, etc. Went through all my details and I was like, yeah. So at this point, she couldn't explain to me when I was asking the questions why I needed the scan. So I then hung up the phone. I was like, right, we're going to have to go to hospital to my husband. And then at this point I started reading up on it, as you do on Google. Google just makes everything worse, so I don't recommend that for anybody going through it. ChatGPT is actually quite helpful. So yeah, where was that? We were going to the hospital. I was Googling it. I then started reading about the fact that it could cause a stillborn baby, and I started freaking out. So when it comes to the disease and causing stillborn babies, I'll go through this. It's essentially when the bile acids make the way through into the fluid where the baby is. It can, if they take that fluid in with the bile within it, it can cause their heart to stop. So it's usually at the latter end of a pregnancy that could happen, and when your bile acid levels are over 100, so that's when they really start to monitor you, pay attention to it, and in most cases they get the baby out early. So I'd went into the hospital, I got the liver scan, and they couldn't tell me anything. So at this point I wasn't allowed to take my husband in the room. I was getting a full scan of my abdominal area, and it was an ultrasound. I was petrified, and then I was told to go up to the pregnancy department upstairs for my results. So we went up. At this point I give all my details at the desk, and they start putting the bands on my wrist. I can see my name on the board, Abby, liver, a room number, and I just started having a panic attack. I was actually saying some irrational things to my husband, if I'm honest. I do have health anxiety as a side note. I'm like, I do not have jammies. I'm not prepared for staying in the hospital. Like, all sorts were going through my head at this point. I hadn't even had my bloods explained to us, so yeah, I think I was up here, especially with all the hormones going on. I'm sure a lot of women going through this can relate to that. So she came over, she seen I was very hysterical and explained, look, your levels are at 27, so they are elevated. However, we can't confirm that it is ICP. You are very, very early on, so it's very unlikely, and we need to do another blood test next week. So if your levels are still up, then you'll probably get referred to a consultant and we'll go from there. So the week after, my bloods got ran again, and they came back at 127. So at this point you can imagine how much I'm freaking out after all of the stuff that I'd read up, the stuff that I was told in the hospital, and there was nothing anybody could do. Not enough people around me knew enough about it. My midwife didn't, and I was just at this point in a waiting game for the consultant. So this was the start of November, and I didn't get in to see the consultant until the 18th of December. And in between that time, my itching got so severe. So to explain the itching, when you are itchy, you obviously scratch your itch, and you can get to the itch on your skin and you relieve it. With this, because it's the blood, you are trying to get to something that's inside your body. That's what's causing the itch. So nothing is relieving the itch. And the more you scratch, the worse it gets, the more it spreads around your body. And by my heightened point, I had it all over every inch of my body. My scalp, my face. I'd scratch my eyelashes off, my eyebrows. My legs were to the point where they were black and blue. I was taking myself to the point where I was bleeding because I was cutting and I was putting that much pressure on. My husband would be watching me essentially self-harm my body through scratching and be telling me to stop, but I just couldn't. I was in such a bad mental state. Such a bad mental state. Like, imagine being itchy 24/7 and it just, nothing stops it. Like, nothing stops it. So I will go through on another video some of the things that gave me bits of relief throughout. But my God, I've just never experienced anything like that. And I did say to my husband and my therapist at the time, if this was for the rest of my life, I couldn't do it. And I'm sure anybody again who goes through it understands what I'm saying with that. I really, really feel for people that have chronic diseases for the rest of their life. It's just horrendous. So yeah, I ended up getting the medication from the consultant. So I was put on a medication called URSO. And at this point, my biles, acids and my ALT was continuously rising, and it had reached 170 odd at this point. And my bile acids was going up towards 170 sort of mark. But then what was weird with my bile acids, which the consultant struggled to understand, was that 1 week it was down to 20, the next week it was back up to 170 odd, the week after it was then at 90, and it was just jumping all over the shop. And it wasn't down to the time of day, because we had it the same day, same time, no diet changes, I wasn't fasting, I did all of the things right in terms of the tests. So I just became a bit of a medical mystery within it. And this was what I found hard, because nobody could give me the advice that I truly needed. So yeah, I got put on this URSO medication, which I was told by the consultant at that point the trial hadn't worked for that medication, so people didn't see any relief in terms of the itching. So I didn't even have that placebo effect, because I'd had that put in my brain at the start, which I do sometimes wonder how would I have reacted if she hadn't have said that. So over Christmas, obviously everything's closed at this point, obviously hospitals are open, but my day-to-day midwife was off, and I started taking the medication. Over Christmas, I deteriorated like nothing I've seen in terms of my own body. I lay on the sofa the whole of Christmas, all of my plans were cancelled, I cried, I itched, I was just a shell of myself. When I think back to it, it was just absolutely horrendous. I lived in pyjamas, I could only put silk on my body once I reached this point. I could put on, you know, that soft cotton, and I couldn't face putting clothes on when I'd got to this stage. So I went to see my midwife in my pyjamas after the Christmas period, got another test done, and my bile acids had gone up to 200 and odd. So she was like, look, I think you are reacting to the medication, I think you should come off it. So at that point I came off it. She said she would put it on my notes to the consultant. And if I'm honest, my itching didn't get any better, but when I was going back for my week-on-week bile acids, it was going back down to 70, back up to just over 100, then elevating back up, back down. So, but it was nowhere near as high as it had got when I was on the URSO. So that was that. And then from the January period, I started to get really, really bad sickness, so I couldn't keep food down. And I myself am a size 6'8" in normal clothing sizes, so I started to lose a lot of frightening weight. I was on weight builder, shakes, but everything was just coming up. And by the end of my pregnancy, I weighed less than I did at the start of my pregnancy, which was frightening considering I had a baby in me. If I'm honest, I do feel like I was neglected at that point. I really do feel like I should have been on a drip in hospital and getting some sort of nutrition put in my body. I'll pop some photos up on here, and it is actually frightening the stage that I got to when I gave birth. I find this part really hard to talk about. Come on, you've made it this far, Abby. Over the period between Christmas to March it was really, really, really dark time in my life. This was at the stage where I honestly don't think I'd have gotten through it without my husband. I really don't. And me mum. those two were my absolute rocks in terms of being there every day, getting everything I needed for the baby, everything I needed for me to feel prepared, because I couldn't leave the house after Christmas. I couldn't put clothes on, I couldn't go to work. I still worked, but remotely from home. I had to do it to give myself some form of distraction, and it got to the point where I missed out on so much, and I do get so angry at why did I have to go through that as a pregnancy? I feel like I was robbed of the pregnancy that I dreamt of since I was a little girl. And I know I got my gorgeous daughter, but just nobody normalizes this. Nobody tells you that this is something that you can go through. And this is part of the reason why I'm doing it, because it's real. And so many women go through this. It's shit. It is shit. To put it politely, if I'm honest. And at the end, my parents were coming in, all the family members, my friends were coming in, and they were just bursting out crying when they seen me. And now that me and my husband look back at the photos, we understand why. Like, my husband being around me daily did not see my deterioration because he was with me all the time. And when we look back at the photos now, we're like, how did we not see this? I'll put photos on here of all of the self-damage that I did to my skin. Like, this is what this disease is, and there's not enough out there. Like, why are women having to go through this with no help? Like, I was just left. I was just left to scratch myself, to go through the mental torture. Every 24 hours was painful. I didn't sleep. I had 1 to 3 hours max a night. So at this point, I'm no sleep, no nourishment going into my body because my baby's taking anything that I was keeping down. I was just whittling away, and my mental health was a mess. I didn't want to leave the house. I didn't want to speak to people. And me, I'm such a social butterfly. I'm such a bubbly person. And this is the reality of this disease. It's absolutely horrendous and torturous. And more people need to pay attention to it and find a cure for women, because we shouldn't be left to go through it like this. We just shouldn't. It's disgusting. So yeah, kickstarting to the end of February, I was 32 weeks pregnant at this point. I went and seen my consultant, and she said I could get the section early. So I was getting a section, sorry I've missed that part out. We'd agreed I was getting a section because I was very weak. I didn't think I was going to be able to push a baby out, and neither did the specialists around me. I just didn't have the energy. They were frightened obviously for the health of the baby, and we were aiming to get to week 35. So they booked in my section for 35 plus 5. And at that point I was devastated because I had to go through another almost 4 weeks of this absolute torture. And I know it sounds bad because all the way through my pregnancy I was getting told to probably try and get her out at 32. So that was like my goal that I'd set in my head. And I think anybody who's been through this will know what I mean with this. You have this goal, you count down the hours, you count down the minutes of what you're going through, because you get told that it'll go when you have the baby. That's the cure. And I got to that point and I just thought, I'm going to have to go through this. So I was in and out of hospital because her movement was reducing. I was obviously petrified of the stillborn. You get advised to go in anyway with any pregnancy if you feel that way. I was just deteriorating like no tomorrow. My mum was in hospital with me. My husband was in hospital with me, begging them to get the baby out. It was almost like I had a parasite in my body, like making me ill and making me worse. And do you know, at the time I referred to myself as Bella from Twilight, and everybody was laughing around me when I shared the photo that I put on here. everyone was like, oh my God, you actually do look like that. And I'll never forget when I went in at week 34 and the doctor came in and said, do you not normally look like this? And my mum was like, are you actually joking? Have you seen her? She looks like a corpse on the bed. And do you know, I can laugh about it now, but when I think back, it's actually disgusting that I was just left to that and left to go through that. So yeah, I ended up getting my section brought forward when I'd went in on that day to 35+1. So even that 4 days was relief to me and I burst out crying. And then I ended up going into natural labour at 34+6 and I had her at exactly 35 weeks. So yeah, at the end of my pregnancy I did forget to mention there that my bile acids had got to 330 odd and my ALT was up to 273. So they were very high at the end and they did continue to rise post-pregnancy, but as I said, I'll go into that in another video. So yeah, if you are finding this helpful, if you want to follow this out of interest or support and you're interested in this journey, then please do like and subscribe my channel. If you are going through this, as I say, please comment in the comments below and I'd love to connect with you. I'd love to share any advice. Just even a few women I've been chatting to over on my TikTok, it's just nice to know that what you are feeling is okay to feel those things. You do feel a lot of anger, you do feel a lot of frustration, you do feel sad and robbed of a lot of things too. So just nice being able to speak to people that understand. So please reach out to me. I am friendly, I am nice. And yeah, as I say, if you can like and subscribe, show any support, it would be much appreciated. So I'll see you on the next episode, which will be me going down to London to meet the consultants face to face, first time, and start getting the tests. So let's see how it goes.